Good evening, welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is David Okon. Today I will be speaking about the cost of living crisis, which is a global phenomenon which is happening everywhere. Today I will be focusing on the UK, looking at the United Kingdom policy on the cost of living crisis. It is a welfare policy essentially helping people who are needing help. And if you watch at the rest of my video, you will discover that I spoke about the cost of living as being caused by income problem. And I was looking at policies across the globe, and also the content of society, the potential of every continent, every country, not necessarily every country, but the country I spoke about, the two countries in Asia, Europe. And when I look at America, I look at the financial crisis of 2007 and 2008, and to form a view that the cost of living crisis is actually a government problem, government policy problem, policy failure issue, where the public sector has been destroyed, has been weakened, is being destroyed and shut down. And if a country is interested in dealing with poverty in a country, because the cost of living crisis is caused by poverty, and there are a group of people who live in a country, but especially in Europe. Today I will talk about the United Kingdom. When I talk about the United Kingdom, I'm also talking about the developed world, Europe included, America, and the rest of the world. But also I'll talk about Africa, because Africa is a former colony of the European powers. Therefore, the system is similar. Also, because of globalization, capitalism is actually being spread across the globe. Therefore, pay attention wherever you are to what is happening in the United Kingdom in terms of policy and sources of help. Sources of help now being implemented to support the cost of living crisis. Most of them are not new. Most of them are actually policy already existing in this country, in the United Kingdom. And like I said, because the government has destroyed the public sector, and because most people in this country sometimes think they are not poor, especially if they are the middle class, working class, in the middle class, or small and medium businesses. Because sometimes they get help from the government, like grants. But a lot of the time they get credit, such as money being borrowed from lending institutions for individuals. These are actually false economy, like we saw in America when we looked at the financial crisis they are created by the credit system. The credit system is a very bad approach to doing economy. But this is what the governments of the world, not just one country, have chosen to approach growth, to approach conducting capitalism. And I've said this everywhere. I'll be repeating them also today, looking at specifics in the United Kingdom, looking at income and income relating to issues to do with poverty. Normally, when you pay attention to income, means you are poor, and people who are middle class, when they lose their jobs and then they realize they're in trouble going forward now increasingly, because the government is closing down the public sector. Public sector's original design and purpose was to provide help for people who are not millionaires, who are not billionaires. And if you are a millionaire and billionaire, you are not suffering the cost of living as a crisis. And this, I have repeated this point so that people get to understand. When people understand the broader issues, rather than focusing on the narrower of what government provide as of help, then people begin to be more educated about a particular problem. In this sense, when you face a problem, the best way to approach such a problem is actually to learn how what the problem is, and also how begin to start thinking of ways to solve the problem. You're living in a modern society the proposition is clear. The government is not helping you anymore. So what you are now to do is to start helping yourself, whether you're in Africa, whether you're in Europe or the other continents of the world. Uh, Talk about globalization is happening everywhere. Solving one problem in one country involves all the countries generally because of something called harmonization and also something called cooperation between states or lack thereof. And it is a complicated situation at politics, at political and policy context. But today I'm going to look at specific policy and have available in the UK. You live in the UK, try to check with your local authorities. What the government do, what it does with the cost of living crisis is actually try to give money or food or energy to people who need it. Now, the help are there in the UK, but also in the most developed countries. Except the problem with this help is that they are very little. They are just there as a rubber stamp. They are not really, the intention of the government is not to help anyone, as I speak, anywhere in the world. So because of capitalism, because of political ideology and also its failure, because it is misled, it is poorly educated. The governments of the world are actually misled and so poorly educated such that they are now creating a lot of problems. Is actually relating, it's the most important aspect of the cost of living is actually peace, because this is an attack on peace. And I've said it in the other videos. If you watch this video, you watch the other one. Thank you for everyone. Thank you to everyone who have been watching my videos to support me. And I've been now 11 months operationally. I've been 11 months now. This channel began in 2012. It was dominant. I decided to start by talking about the cost of living crisis like here in December. So next month we are going to be one here, and it has been a slow and painful journey in terms of growth, because we need to grow as a channel so that we begin to perform. But I've really enjoyed every bit of it. It's quite challenging, and we are still working on improving on our editing and also improving on what equipment to choose and also to use. We have really improved. If you look at our pictures now, our pictures have really improved because we have actually improved on the equipment, on the device I'm using now. I'm using my mobile phone, which has a very good photographic, but it takes really one or more things to produce a good video. Bear with us, and also the policy, the topic I'm talking about is really sometimes actually complex, and it is not really straightforward to explain it. Like I said today, this is a new segment of the process. We're going back to where we began last year, talking about the situation in the United Kingdom. Like I said, the situation in the United Kingdom is comparable to the situation in Europe, America, and also Asia and some part. If your country is developed, then your circumstances may be different. The dilemma, as you will find, is that the less money you have, the more problem you have. And there are so many infrastructure within helping people who need help. Healthcare, in terms of energy, water, food, and housing, rent, how to pay rent. If you want help with mortgage, you have to really borrow a mortgage from a mortgage company. That is entirely a private sectorial system. If you're paying rent, sometimes if you are on low income in the United Kingdom, you can get some help from the government. If you are £16,000 and below, you're not working, you are residents in the United Kingdom, and you have been in the United Kingdom up to a certain point in terms of immigration, there's very many eligibility criteria, which I will try to look at as we go to look into benefits. System benefit is like a grant, it's like money given freely to people of Britain and also with similar countries like Britain. But my criticism of government policy and practice is that the level of benefit is very low. It should be multiplied. It should actually be increased. The level of benefit should be increased about 3 to 4 times the level it is. And another problem with benefit system, and it's quite complex. It's so difficult to understand what the benefits is, because the system is so broken. There's so many types of benefits and with so different rules, which is entirely unnecessary. We have child benefits, we have sickness benefit, we have benefit for paying housing, paying rent, we have living allowances, living benefit for your livelihood. All these are not necessary because you could actually have one benefit. There is one benefit called universal credit, but it is a rubber stamp. It's a really silly policy, because you find that the whole family, the whole system has been wrapped up in a packaging which actually made it even more complicated, more confusing, and also every time the government does reform, it reduces the amount of benefit, and it makes the conditions for accessing benefit and also to sustain benefit almost impossible, which is actually a no-brainer, and is a defeatist approach to poverty alleviation, because nobody wants to be in poverty in benefit. Benefit is a horrible idea. It's a terrible mistake, but it's a mistake which is necessary, because there has been another problem in a country like Britain, which was created based on total violence and has been created by complete savagery, where kings and queens of the land forcefully took away the land from the British people, and I can say they misled the British people to believe they are citizens. But capitalism across the globe, any form of rule across the globe is actually slavery. It is violent, and even if we talk of civilization, we are most likely not to see civilization unless we learn our culture. Like, if you watch the rest of the video, I talk a lot about culture. We begin to change the way we think. Our educational system has to change so that we begin to learn peace other than war. And learning peace is to do with people. We have respect for ourselves and for others. We don't abuse our lives. We don't abuse others. That's simple as that. But it's not simple to change, to bring changes, because it will take time. It will take the will, political will, and also the cultural will of the people. People will be willing to work for peace. Because if you work for war, you get war. If you work for peace, you get peace. And now you find in families, even children, if they want something, they have to fight for it. Want a job, you have to fight for it. If you want healthcare, you have to fight for it. If you want benefit, you have to fight for it. This is not peace, because if you want benefit, you have to really get it. You go and get it. You don't need to fight. Now, if you go and try to apply for benefit in the UK, if you try to go to the hospital in the UK, you have to fight for your life, to access healthcare, to access housing. You have to fight for it. Welfare include benefit, include housing, include healthcare, include food, energy, good employment. If you are employed, you work for living, you are on welfare, because that is actually you can only be employed in the UK or anywhere else if the government supports such a system. Because you see, you work for somebody else or you're self-employed, and if it's small and medium business, if the government doesn't support you, you are going to go out of business. And also big corporations, if the government doesn't manage the economy effectively, which is now losing the grip, because it's actually giving the country away to the super rich, who are, some of these super rich are like children. They are literally 7-year-old, 10-year-olds in the body of an adult. And they are very dangerous people. And they are acquiring a lot of wealth and power. And they are going to use this wealth and power to destroy the countries of the world. This is not just a UK situation. I've been talking about this thing. I want people to pay attention. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't subscribed. and share with family and friends. Leave a comment and support this channel, and most importantly, if there is anything useful, benefit from it, it doesn't matter how many people watch this video. Only one person watching is going to be enough for me, because it means one person watching and me also producing it. Two people will actually spread the message. It takes longer. Spread the message of peace. My channel is about peace. It's not about war. You either have war or you have peace. You cannot have your cake and eat it in life. You cannot have war and peace at the same time, which it appears today's society be thinking that you can do something wrong and get the right result. If you go and bomb the people in Hamas, if you are Israel, and Israel, if you are Hamas, you go and kill innocent civilians in Israel, and you hope for peace, then you must be a wizard. Something is wrong with you. If you are an American, if you are an African, maybe in Niger or Rwanda, Burundi, or whichever country, you go and kill human beings with guns and bombs or viruses, or even with the weather. Because if we are not careful, some of these crazy millionaires and billionaires are going to use science as weapons of mass destruction. They can go into the space to do research there. We think they're doing it for peace, but they're weaponizing even the weather, the sun, the rain, the lightnings, whatever they can lay their hands on, because we are advancing technologically, which is good. But if we allow infants, children, psychopaths to manage this system, then we are going to destroy. As I speak, probably, because those people, people in power operating secretly. As they operate secretly, you are not really sure what they're trying to do behind the scenes. We ordinary people are always suspicious, and we have the right to be suspicious, because we know powerful people operating secretly, and they are getting more and more powerful. And as we talk about the cost of living, let us not just focus on the cost of living. Look at the wider picture. As you watch the rest of the video, I'll discuss it. I will be going through it over and over going forward. And I'll also be discussing other issues. But now we're focusing on the cost of living crisis. It's a factor of peace or lack thereof. So in the UK, coming back to the UK now, to look at specifics of what kind of help, how it look like. So a lot of people struggle paying their energy bills like gas, electricity, and so many people will need help from the government. And this help, the government gives to big energy companies, big corporations. Unfortunately, because the money given to big energy companies, which are private companies, should have been given to local authorities or even charities to give directly to people who need it. But the government is wrong at policy, and this will change as quickly as possible. The billions or even trillions of even as grants or as other form of help. And this help is supposed to be given to people who are in debt, people who need help with energy or water. Because in the UK, you have to buy energy, you have to buy water. There is nothing you get, including food, without buying. Everything is bought. You have to pay for it. Rent, if you live in a house, you have to pay rent. These may not occur in Africa or other places in India and China, but it is increasingly in the rest of in the rest of the world. Throughout the rest of the world now, you pay for everything. In the UK, like in any developed world, you need to pay for these things. And also, people, when you talk about the cost of living, you're looking at income. You're looking at also debt. People get into debt. I spoke at length about the credit economy. I criticized it when I was studying the credit crunch, the global financial crisis we started in America in 2007-8. It was entirely the mistake of the government trying to provide housing for the people of America who need housing through the private sector. And the private sector, with the government formulated a plan which failed, involving the credit economy, mortgages is a form of credit which is actually used in the developed world, especially now going into the developing world, especially in Africa. This mortgaging is a form of credit. Actually, credit is the money or wealth you borrow to buy one thing or another. Mortgage in particular, to buy property, to buy a house, for living in, or buying a house for something else. But in America, instead of providing housing for the American people, the American government chose to tell poor people who didn't qualify in terms of integrity, they didn't qualify to borrow money. So the government provided money to private companies to back up these mortgages. These mortgages were so toxic to provide what is also a toxic social economy beginning in America. When it failed, it actually triggered a financial crisis. And the credit system is not necessary at all, because the credit system is a phantom. It's kind of like it's like a disease. It's like a virus. It should be scrapped. The IMF should change its policy of funding. I mean, it is giving grants to people who need it, directly to charities, directly to governments. The public sector should be strengthened, and also the third sector, which is the charity, should be strengthened. There are so many charities in the UK. Some of the biggest providers of social services are actually charities in this country. They are now almost incapable of functioning because the government is not funding it. Central government should send money to some of these charities directly, and some of them should be ring-fenced for specifics like recruiting people. People need jobs locally, but through these local authorities, like we call them the council in the UK, local authorities, and also these local charities. They are now the vehicles to manage the public sector and social policies. The government is shutting down the economy, so that's why it's not funding. Because if you fund something, it's not going to be shut down. And even in housing, government is actually failing to invest in infrastructure, like building affordable homes to be given an affordable, and also in the housing status being actually secure. They are failing to do that to provide public housing. They are instead putting people in temporary accommodation, dealing with private sector, private companies, private businesses. Private businesses only want profit. And there's now a lot of problem with the housing where government putting people in property which are not suitable in private companies. And these private companies are also small and medium. They need extra support from the government because they themselves are struggling to survive. And there's a major problem in housing now where landlords, private landlords, literally they are not able to do repairs. And there is a policy in housing called Section 21 in the United Kingdom, which is a terrible policy, but it's good for landlords. If you're a small and medium business, it's very good for you, because if you want your property back, you have the right to take it away. But the problem with the government is that it's putting people, it's allowing people, it's actually, if you go to the local authorities, it is now impossible to get property, even if you are homeless. Because my definition of homelessness is that if you cannot afford to buy a house, cash, with money, not even getting into debt to borrow money to get a mortgage to buy a property. If you borrow money to buy a mortgage, if you borrow money to buy a property, you are homeless, because this is not your money. It's not even your house. If you lose your job today, you're going to lose your property, because the government do not pay mortgages in the UK. They pay some interest, which is a temporary measure, which doesn't provide housing security. So the best approach to housing, for example, is a form of welfare, which is also related to the cost of living crisis. Though sometimes, if you listen to the media, you don't think the housing is part of the problem, because the cost of living encompasses every essentials, including hospitals, including housing, including employment. That is also factors involved in cost of living. So the way the government defines it is inaccurate, and how to look at it actually in terms of welfare, which is actually, as like I said, include housing, include food, energy, water, and public transport, healthcare, the basics necessities. Yeah. Also, we could include environmental protection, because if we don't have healthy environment, it's going to be even more dangerous. People are getting sick. The waters are being polluted, and the air is being polluted. Sometimes the sound is being polluted. People are lying mad because they can't sleep at night. I mean, there is a lot of problem to do with anxiety, mental illness, because if there's a lot of noise, cars driving at night, and the houses are actually not soundproof. It's the responsibility of the government to protect residents, citizens from noise pollution. This is not happening because the people to invest for the money are actually the public sector, the council, the local authority, and charities. If they are not funded, they cannot do their work. And it is happening now that the services needed by the locals are not really being provided because of funding. Government is not funding the council, the government is not funding the charities, and not being funded means what they give is symbolic. It's quite little. There is a need, there is serious need for service in terms of housing, in terms of policy, in terms of the law. And also, increasingly, the government is actually cutting legal aid, taking jobs away from lawyers and from legal workers, taking jobs away from different sectors of the legal infrastructure or legal economic system. But most importantly, if you are on low income, you can no longer access justice in so many aspects of legal dispute. There is no access to law, to justice, because of the cuts in legal aid. And legal aid can be for representation. It can also be for support, like a legal advice, legal and some other form of support. All these factors affect income, but also there is a specific problem to do with debt, and a lot of people need help, especially now with debt management. Also, how to manage your debt, how to understand debt, how to negotiate with your creditor. For example, an example of debt is actually rent, a council tax in the UK. And if you don't pay your rent, the landlord is going to kick you out. It doesn't matter the social housing, which is actually the council and housing association. They will kick you out of your property. Follow a certain process, but it is easier to be evicted if you are in private property. And these are the problems now being faced by the United Kingdom. The residents in a similar problem across the globe, especially in the developed world, but also increasingly in the developing world. People are being evicted, and this is a factor under the cost of living crisis, which needs to be thought of. And like I said, if you are living in the UK, you need to start increasingly taking responsibility for yourself. You need to start maximizing your income, and also if there is help, do your best to get help at any cost. It's not easy to get help. Energy companies are making it harder. The conditions for accessing, they are quite reluctant, because the government teaches them something called efficiency saving, which is a nonsensical proposition when you look at the public services. Public service has nothing to do with efficiency. Efficiency in public sectoral sense means improving the effectiveness of the service. That is not happening. You phone public service, you can wait for 2 hours, and at the end of it, you don't get really anything because there's no resources. That is inefficient because people don't get the service they need. They wait for so long, and the quality of service is going down because service providers are under pressure. The fault of the government failing to fund these organizations, including the statutory bodies, locally and centrally, but mostly locally because of decentralization. These services have been brought allegedly closer to service users locally, which localism is not a bad thing. But if it is not funded, then it is a nonsensical prospect. And this is what I will be trying to speak about. There are problems with bills and also benefits. I will continually look at these things to try and try and make sense. And things like energy bills. If you don't pay your debt, if you don't pay your debt to your energy provider, which are now private companies, and they shouldn't have been private companies. Public service should be provided by public companies. It is a total madness wherever it occurs for the government to give the responsibility of providing public service to private companies. Private companies, especially big ones, are there to make profit. You cannot make profit against poor people who are the majority of this country trying to provide public service. That's a mistake of the government's policy, recklessness, produced by the poor thinking in terms of ideology and political gamemanship. This should stop because they're playing games with human life, playing politics with human life. And the British people should refuse. They should pick their MPs if they can access. Because the same problem I talk about is also at the MP's office. Because the MP's office is a public service infrastructure. If it is not funded, you try to contact your MP, you're not going to get to talk to him because he is also struggling. That MP is struggling at his office. The administration is struggling. Everything public is dying, and this has to be reversed. Because if not, then we are going to create an environment of violence, of war. Abusing public sector is a form of warfare against people who need it. Because it's people who need help being violated by producing a public sectoral failure. This is a form of warfare against the majority of this country. And if the government wants peace, it has to really pursue peace through policy of sensibility, providing what they need to be provided in terms of the factors needed for livelihood. And so we look at different factors, and normally when you are actually in debt, which is a major problem, energy is a priority debt in terms of understanding how the policy works. It's a priority debt in the sense that your service in the UK will be discontinued. Now, if you are relying on energy and the government, the UK government, allows your service to be disconnected because you cannot pay your debt, then the UK government, doesn't matter which political party, is negligent. The British people do not elect politicians to abuse them by their incompetence, by their negligence. There is no government in this world, especially wealthy country like Britain or any of the European countries, to allow its citizens to be disconnected. And also, there is nothing to say you should give public money to private companies when they don't actually use it to protect people who are in debt. Instead, these people are being evicted. Their services are being disconnected. And this is an offense. It's a moral offense which the government should stop. The government should provide money to charities and the local authorities it should actually take this contract away from energy companies. Stop giving public money to big organizations or small organizations to provide. Especially all the energy companies are actually multi-billionaires. Some of them are even multi-trillionaires. Do not give public money to them. These energy companies should use their wealth to reduce the cost of energy if they are to provide energy. In the first place, no private company should be allowed to provide public service, especially energy, because it's a priority. And water for the moment, but I believe it will be changing. Water is being bought from water companies. You pay for it. Water should not be paid for, especially by people who are even on benefit, people who are on minimum wage, people who work for a living generally. Unless their payment is to a certain level, unless the account is middle class, perhaps they can pay some bit. If British citizens are to pay for water and energy and food, the government should subsidize it at all costs, and it should be removed from the private companies and given to the government to run it itself through government businesses locally, and also wherever else they want to put it. But locally, local government, the council, should actually supply water directly. No outsourcing any nonsense to any private company, because they are not fit for purpose to provide public service. That's why public service is failing. It's a form of insanity for the government to do that, and it has to be stopped. And the government should change direction. And if the government wants to privatize these services, it should privatize it, some bit of it, to provide service for the rich. Because rich people can afford to pay for energy, food, they can afford housing, they can afford hospital services, they can afford to pay for these things, including transport. They live in mansions, they drive luxury limousines. That is okay, because they are super rich. That is fine. There should be a two-tier economic system, one for the rich, one for the normal people, the majority of the population. And this is actually going to be more peaceful than what we have now, where the government seeks to treat multi-billionaires and multi-trillionaires exactly the same way as people who are on the street. In Britain, nobody should be on the street. The British government has no shame at all. The British government should stop sending people into public library. It's a shameful act. If a government can no longer have shame, then such a government is not fit to govern. And if all the governments are like that, they should all be shut down. If all the global governments are like global governments are worthless, they should not be operating as governments. Doesn't matter where they operate, whether in the UK or abroad. You should have shame in your head if you are a minister, if you are prime minister, allowing people to go like slaves, like fools, into libraries, into public places, because you cannot, as a country, provide energy for the poor. And the poor are increasingly becoming the majority at the extreme, because more people will be losing their job because of the growth of technology. And the government should be the one to tell us this, because they are all the information. The technology is a good thing, and but the change is going to be rough. And the government should be there to manage change from technologically employed industry to from human employed technology to technologically employed economy, which is the direction we're taking, which is a good thing. And nobody objects to things like nanotechnology, artificial intelligence, robotics, and 3D printers. These are now at the forefront. It is yet in medicine, in schools, in industries generally, to make life better. But if the government insists on playing political games, which is violent and backward, because the history of the world in the building of nations has been violent. Let us move from the past, the past violent world, and embrace the future, and change our attitude and learn contemporary culture where we focus on humanity. We concentrate on understanding the value of people other than understanding the value of anything else. It's okay to look at development and wealth and things like enlightenment, that is fine. But we need to now begin to prioritize humanity in terms of valuation, in terms of value. To value yourself, to value other people. You don't need to fight them. You don't need to abuse them. If you're a rich person, you should learn your culture. If a poor person is in your country, the government does not need to tax you. You need to set up charities. You need to be funding all the charities in this country. You're multimillionaire, take your money and fund all the key charitable organizations which are now starving of income. Because if you do that, then you will show your humanity. If you don't, you actually owed money, you owed wealth, then you are an animal, worse than an animal. You are an alien. You're not even human, because humans have common sense. Multimillionaires should develop common sense. If not, the government should teach them. If they cannot learn, they should be excluded and their wealth should be taken away. And every foreign office in the world and all defense offices, security infrastructure, should focus on the super rich globally, for them to learn lessons and manners, to share their wealth with people who, through no fault of their own, cannot access wealth, because the system of wealth is rigged to support the few, but not the many. That is how the system is designed. It doesn't matter how you try. If you are out of opportunity for wealth, it doesn't matter how hard you work, you are not going to get rich. Because you see, there is no capacity. And we understand that that is okay. What we need is to get people out of poverty, to eradicate even the sound of the cost of living crisis. We do not need a situation like this anywhere in a modern world. And if we continue to go through these materials, I will be commenting on the political dilemma which is creating problems. The government may have policy, but if these policies are implementable, because there are no organizations available to implement them, because there is no funding, then these policies are remain on paper. The best places to look for information about the cost of living health is the government website in the UK, gov.uk, and also other big organizations like Citizen Advice. There is a public site, Citizen Advice, I think Shelter, and there are a whole host of other legal organizations which actually work with charities. There are organizations who work with hospitals. Look for those organizations. If I find them, because my system is still limited, if I find this, I will list them and try my best to leave links on my video. Not this one today, because I need to really prepare that. But for now, I just use whatever material I find, wherever I find them, to guide my speaking to you about this thing. This is not an advice. This is actually a discussion about the problem of the cost of living, but also reminding you to find help from advice services within you can go online, because you can look at this information. This actually, you can contact this organization also online, get advice online, you get on the phone, get advice face to face. Look for them. If you live in the UK, look at the council website, look at the government website, look at all the charities. whichever you go to the library, local library, and look for these links, and I will just be talking to you how the system looks. It's so difficult to get this help, but try your best to get it, because it could mean a matter of life and death, especially getting help from the hospital. Because you can phone the hospital and wait for 2 hours, and the assistant will answer the phone after 2 hours and tell you there's no appointment, doctor's appointment. And if you need help immediately, they may ask you to go to accident emergency. You go to accident emergency, you can stay there for 2 days if you insist on staying, because the system is broken, it's not working. You wait and wait and wait, and if you phone for an ambulance, the chances they are not going to come unless they think you are really going to die. If they don't come, that is still happening. But sooner people will start dying at home because the ambulance cannot come. And sometimes if you phone an ambulance, you are told you should take a taxi. They will ask you to take a taxi to hospital. If you do that, you will be left in the hospital, and you will sit there and not get help, even if it is at night, even if during the day. So the system is locking people who do not have money out of all of the system, out of the economy. And if you need dental help, make sure you can pay for your dental service. If you can't, there is no dental service for you. And the same with hospital now. You need to start thinking of actually getting private services in housing, private services in even the buses and trains. It's going to be more and more expensive because they have been privatized. The hospital is going to be impossible to access because they have been privatized. The dentistry the same. And now, if you go there, the attitude is not to provide service because they don't have resources. The government is not funding them, and they are just shutting down. Only if you have money, then you will access these services through private. They don't tell you this because they are not supposed to tell you this. And but that if you phone the hospital every day, the hospital family doctors in the UK, the GP, general practitioner, don't give appointment at all. They will tell you they don't book pre-appointment. That means that they don't actually give appointment, because all appointments should be pre-booked. That is the only way to book appointment. If you don't book pre-appointment, then somebody should walk in. And if you walk into the GP, you are not going to be sent home. You are not going to be seen. See, GP is a family doctor in the UK. You don't get seen. They will give you a number to phone, advising you to phone it early in the morning. If you phone it early in the morning, you're going to wait for nearly 2 hours. And the phone will be answered. And the answer is the same, that they have run out of a doctor's appointment. Now, if you run out of doctor's appointment, can you book me an appointment today? No, we don't pre-book appointments. Call us tomorrow, and you call them tomorrow, the same thing. Now you're a sick person who wants to see a doctor. Maybe you need a prescription for your medical condition, and then what they're trying to do is try to avoid. The service is not there, basically. If you are facing an emergency, you have to go to accident emergency. Okay? If you go to accident emergency, you're not going to be helped. If you're not careful, if we are not careful now, you're going to die. Because you see, the service at the accident emergency doesn't work. Unless you're about to die, then maybe, that is even a maybe. In the actual essence, you can actually die on a trolley. You can die anytime in the hospital. That is what is happening now. And it sounds like all a story, and it is. Because strange things are happening in this country now, where everything is actually not working. And the government no longer listens to anyone, because they have reached to a stage where they no longer listen to anybody, because they have enough power now to do whatever they like. They are now operating like dangerous dictators, and there's nothing you can do unless we begin to pay attention, because the people think the government is there to help them. It is important to understand that the government is no longer there to help you, and so that you begin to change the way you think, to try and help yourself. If you want to go to demonstrate, you go to demonstrate, but even demonstration is no longer helping. So don't waste your time to go to demonstrate. If you can get help, do your best, but it's going to be difficult, almost impossible. But try anyway. There's no harm in trying. This is what I'm trying to say. I'll be saying this over and over. And we talk about debt, we talk about benefits, we talk about agreeing with your creditor. You know, in terms of energy agreement, you have to agree make some form of agreement with your supplier. That's the thinking. But these are temporary measures anyway. But every little helps, and this is the kind of help, kind of thing you can think about. These are options you can pay off your debt, and also you can come to an agreement to pay your debts. You can, like I said, you can get a grant, but getting these grants are impossible. They're symbolic, but what's the point? To tell people there is help when you can't get the help. In the hospital, in energy, so in terms of housing, in terms of people being homeless, the chances are that one of these days people will be on the street. People are on the street now, because the criteria for housing is changing. The need definition criteria is changing. People who used to qualify for housing are no longer getting housing. So wherever you look in the UK, as an example, there is increasingly nothing really to report, and only try to get what you can, and try to get help as much as you can from different organizations. Go online, get help from there, and go on to the government website, organizations like Citizen Advice Shelter, the local authorities. And next time I will try to compile this list of this organization and talk to you through these organizations. I'll try to gather some information, information on how to contact them, the time they open, and little information like that. But be warned that it's not going to be. The reason I'm trying to say is, if you're going to get help in the UK, wherever you are watching this video, you need to manage your expectation. That in the sense that you may expect big money, but this money are actually very little. You may expect to get it quickly, but it can take weeks or months. You may want a housing you may be on a waiting list on housing. You can wait for 20 years on a temporary accommodation, or even on a waiting list when you're living in a private accommodation. There are situations where a family of 3 or 4, 2 adults, 3 children, or 2 children living in a 1-bedroom private accommodation, having waited for 20 years on a waiting list for 20 years. Now, the government is not giving them accommodation because they are not homeless. They have a place to live in. That is a rotten form of argument. And this behavior, this culture should change and stop immediately. Because if you cannot buy a house, you're homeless. If you are renting a home, you're homeless. That is the purpose of welfare. If you cannot even, if you buy a house on a mortgage, you're homeless, which means if you lose your job, the government should pay the mortgage. You shouldn't lose your home. But this is not what is happening. The policy should change immediately. Because you see, if there is still MPs, then take this video to your MP. If he has time, let me watch it. If not, let his secretary or personal assistant watch it and take notes from it. And also advise the MP, including their minister, that somebody on a mortgage is actually homeless. The government should change the definition of homelessness, and also the definition of need should be also changing. You don't need to be on your deathbed to qualify for housing, to be seen as being homeless. That is really so ridiculous. You know, a lot of people who are actually priority in this, almost everybody in this country has a priority for the housing. The policy needs to change. If the government wants peace, if it doesn't want peace, then it should come clean. Because we need to really be prepared for failure. In which case, we need to be prepared as the people of Britain and begin to look after ourselves. See, the government can take its government and go with it somewhere else. We carry on with our lives. Don't even try to tax us, and don't try to tell us what to do in terms of the law. We want our independence from the government. Unless the government, we elect the government to run the country. The government is giving our wealth and our lands and our country to the super rich, who keep it for themselves. They prevent people from accessing wealth. They don't use it because it is too much for them. How can one person have hundreds of billions of US dollars, and yet there are people who do not have a penny to their name in the same country? Only common sense to teach the British people and the people of the world. Because like I said in the beginning, in the opening, what happened in Britain is actually happening across the globe. So, in as much as I will be talking through to draw attention to what the situation in the United Kingdom, but because essentially if you're living in Korea or in China or in North Korea, in South Korea, or in wherever you're living, or Russia, because capitalism is catching up with everybody everywhere. I don't know about North Korea. I think North Korea is now talking with American president. It's a matter of time before it embraces capitalism as a mode of operating its economy. Once that happens, then there's going to be privatization. Privatization is the cause of this problem. The solution is to stop privatizing public service. Public service is there to provide for those who are not really millionaires and billionaires. If they are billionaires, it's okay. But you see, the structure of the economy does not allow many people to be rich. So there should be more, not less, public sector. And this is a message I will repeat over and over, so that even if you are deaf, you should be able to hear it. And also maybe if you are mentally deranged, you should be able to listen and understand what I'm talking about. So when you talk about negotiating with with your creditor, you need professionals to do that. Go and look for professionals to help you to negotiate. Normally, there is something called empowerment within the service sector, providing welfare support in terms of information, advice, and services. So there is empowerment, but do your best if you can get the help of these professionals. But these professionals are struggling because they also need funding, and they're under pressure. The funding policy, the funding infrastructure is changing all the time. There's requirements which are actually realistic, which is actually challenging the quality of service being provided, which is something we need to pay attention as the people of this country of Britain, to put pressure on the government to change policy, because that is by now is the only way to save public services, which is social services is actually part of public service. So like I said, if you are if you are in a position to pay your bills, especially energy, rent, council tax, this is a priority debt, and a whole bunch of other information available. You need to know which one is non-priority and which one are priority. Credit card. A lot of people actually prefer to pay their credit card first, but they are non-priority, which means the government can, the creditor can take it to court to recover, but they are not going to do anything beyond that. You can face the bailiff or something like that. But if you get help, it's a case of trying. There are still help, whatever help is available. Do your best to get from professionals, because these are technical situations. And maybe if the government could set up some public educational facilities, teach people on income maximization, which means you find work, you get benefit, you save money, you cut costs, all these things, if it is possible, but it is not, because whatever project the government said, it has to be funded. If there was reform, appropriate reform, employment reform, more people would be employed, because there is a lot of need within the local authorities for services, but these services cannot be provided in the hospital, within society generally, housing, within transport. People are being laid off because the public sector is being neglected. The private sector is also closing down because they're cutting costs. Inefficiency means in private companies that it's not making profit. If it doesn't make profit, they close it down, unless the government can bail them out. But the government only bail them out if there's a financial crisis, like we saw maybe with COVID-19, with Brexit, maybe financial crisis. Otherwise, the whole thing is going to be very, very difficult. And we should not give up in this program. We don't give up because we live in hope, and we are willing to understand the problem. We will find a solution, including teaching the government how to run our country. People think government is too strong, too big to fail. Government is not too big to fail, but the people are actually in a position to begin to understand how policy works, to understand the necessity to do something for you. See, you need to be empowered. By doing research, there is so much information online. Go and understand, be an expert on the cost of living crisis if you have a breathing space. But if you're working for living, then you're probably working 2-3 jobs to try and meet the cost of living crisis problem. And it's a case of balancing what you learn and what you don't learn. But debt is so important. Income is so important, how to manage it. budgeting, and also, you know, prioritizing what you buy and what you don't buy, cutting down waste. If you buy food, if you have fridge or you don't have fridge, if you know, just save energy as much as you can, save water as much as you can, so that you reduce the cost of everything. It is easy said than done to change even your habit. If you don't need to buy something, don't buy it. If some food is not healthy, you probably should consider buying food and cooking, other than buying pre-cooked, which is also very expensive, which is nice. They are really comfort food. You can buy it once in a while, but if you change your behavior with money and with wealth, it helps. And I'm not sure, because the capacity to actually do small and medium business is disappearing. Let's face it, there is very little room for maneuver. This is a time when the government should actually be helping people, because small and medium businesses now, because of the transformation in the economy, there's something called corporatization. System is now closing down small and medium businesses, which is what ordinary people used to rely on. You can start a small shop, you can start a small restaurant, or making clothing or whatever. It used to be there, but now it's changing. Everything is being corporatized. Big businesses are now running, but big businesses will be closing down also, because if there is not much wealth in the hands of the majority, then big businesses will be losing money. They'll close down. It means the government should find a way of running the country for the majority of the people. The rich people will always be there, the 10%, the 20%. So people need to start thinking options, different options. What are you going to do? If you have a job, you can sleep, but also try and wake up. If you are saving, you can sleep, but your saving may run out. Even if you're a millionaire, you can lose your money in some funny way, because the system is so uncertain, even for multimillionaires, and they are so scared. Because if you're a multimillionaire, you lose your money, your wealth. What are you going to do? Especially people who are not millionaires and billionaires know how to budget because of necessity. Rich people do not know that. What are they going to do? They're going to be stranded. They will probably even die before us, the rest of the world. Because we have at least some level of resilience in terms of handling poverty. When people losing their job will just fizzle out, because the world is a very uncertain place. We need to work together as communities, learn our culture, respect yourself, respect other people. This is the purpose of this material. Respect is really important. I've actually covered most of the information I need to discuss with you, and I'm only discussing in general. This is not advice. I'm not advising anyone. So I'm just sharing this information so that you are aware that you can do one or two things and also help yourself. And going forward, I will be going through some of these materials, but the best place for you to visit actually the government website and all the other internet, because now you need to really manage your expectations and try to understand what is happening. And thank you for watching this video. I'll be looking through the UK. I hope this material works, because I need to kind of like focus and talk about these things in different ways so that we begin to understand what is going on. And subscribe to this channel if you haven't subscribed, and share with family and friends if you haven't shared. If you comment below, click the notification bell. Thank you. See you in the next one. Bye bye.